In my last video, I mentioned that I was going to get into the more technical parts of what Garrett Loesch did in his talk, repeating the same word 120 times in 17 minutes. But before I get into the technical aspects of it, I do want to make one point that one of my subscribers mentioned in my last video. This subscriber actually did the math and noted that saying the same word 120 times in 17 minutes averages 7 times per minute. So that is definitely hypnosis. In fact, I can't recall the name of this program, but I think it's used for things such as studying ancient Egypt. But there's some sort of system where you can feed it data and that the system can detect if there's any weird patterns. And they use this to look for hidden subliminal meanings. And I think it might be used in ancient Egypt. I could be mistaken about that. And I forget what the system is called. But if this talk by Garrett Loesch was put into one of those computer programs, it would definitely flag that there's some hidden hypnosis or something hidden in that talk, because saying the same word 7 times per minute for 17 minutes is definitely not normal. And clearly that's some sort of hypnosis going on. So I thank my subscriber for also bringing that point out of actually doing the math on that. So what I want to get into in this video is the technical parts of how what Garrett Loesch did in that talk is the basis of all the brainwashing in this religion. Now, a lot of the XJWs already know that one of the ways that they brainwash people is simply just repeating things over, like the phrase Jehovah and his organization, Jehovah and his organization, Jehovah and his organization. And that is why when you leave the organization, they say you're leaving Jehovah. Well, you're not leaving Jehovah, you're leaving the organization. But you see, by repeating Jehovah and his organization over and over and over and over and over, they believe that Jehovah and his organization are one and the same. But when I studied Garrett Loesch's talk, I realized that the system that they're using is far more sinister than I think people realize. And that's when I want to break down in this video exactly how sinister and diabolical the system is that they're using. So I'm going to use this Watchtower as an example of how the brainwashing is done at the congregation meeting level. So this article that I'm going to break down to show how they do that is the November 2017 study Watchtower, and the actual lesson that I want to just give an example of is this one that's called Make a Joyful Sound, and it's on page 3. Now, I'm not going to go over this whole magazine, don't worry, but I want to show how this is very carefully crafted to brainwash Jehovah's Witnesses at every meeting using the same thing that Brother Loesch did in the talk that I played in my last video. So it's a 5-step hypnosis session. And this is just something that I'm making up as far as what I'm calling it, a 5-step hypnotic brainwashing repetitive session. So there's there's 6 steps. It's a 6-step program template that they're using. So the first one, it starts with they make the Jehovah's Witnesses study the whole Watchtower article at home before they go to the meeting on Sunday. Now, when I say make, I understand that obviously you're not going to get this fellowship, you're not going to get counseled. It's not something that's enforced, but this is something that's heavily pushed on them and manipulated them to do. So Jehovah's Witnesses feel guilty if they show up at the meeting and they didn't study. So this is one of those unofficial rules that you have to study your Watchtower before you even go to the Kingdom Hall on Sunday. So to break down what they're doing, I'm going to just take one paragraph, just one paragraph, but it works for the whole lesson. But we're going to just show how much brainwashing is done in just one paragraph. So the first step, as I mentioned, is basically they have to study it at home. So paragraph one, they have to read that paragraph. So the message that the paragraph wants to brainwash them, what the brainwashing message is, the first time it's going to be repeated to them is when they read it themselves. So this is step one. So they read paragraph one. Now, the message in paragraph one is in the middle of the paragraph. It says, what better thoughts could we feel than those that express praise and love for our Heavenly Father, Jehovah? It is no wonder that singing is a prominent aspect of prayer worship. So that is basically what they want to repetitively say, as Garrett Loesch did with the word truth. So this particular lesson, I should have said this first, is that they know that Jehovah's Witnesses, most of them do not like their songs. They do not like singing. So they want to manipulate them and make them feel they need to put more effort into singing. And that's basically what this particular article was about, which also shows it's obviously not an organization from God, because if it was from God, then they wouldn't have to be so desperate to have a study lesson to try to make them want to sing. So clearly you can see something is wrong just with that point. But number one, they got to read it themselves, right? So that's the first time that repetitive message is getting in their head. Now, the second part is then they're expected to highlight the answer. So now that's the second time it's being repeated to them, just like that. So they already have to read the paragraph once at home. Then they're expected to now highlight the main point. So then after they read it, they got to go back and make sure they highlight the main point. So that's number two. It's being repeated now a second time, that same point. Now, just to give a little of explanation for those who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses, they try to force you to highlight certain points. Now, just a quick story with myself is that when I was studying at 31 years old to become a Jehovah's Witness, I was raised in an organization as a child, but I didn't do anything with it until I was an adult. So I remember my Bible teacher, he said, yeah, you should highlight the answer. So I didn't highlight the answer because I'm a grown man and I don't need to highlight the answer. Like I'm not 5 years old. I can read, I can figure out what the point is. And if I want to highlight something, I'm going to highlight it, right? That's what highlighting is for. Highlighting is for something that you feel that you need to highlight. So I just didn't highlight. So then my Bible teacher tried to kind of manipulate me. So then when he was sitting next to me at the meetings, he started angling his Watchtower like in my face so I could see that all of his paragraphs were highlighted. And I could tell what he was doing because he didn't previously hold his Watchtower like that. So I'm like, he's just trying to manipulate me to highlight this to see that he's doing it. But I still didn't highlight because I don't need to highlight anything. So then when I wanted to make progress and join a theocratic ministry school, then he couldn't play games anymore. He had to flat out tell me, well, you're not highlighting your Watchtower. So I said, again, I don't need to highlight my Watchtower. So after going back and forth with him, I kind of just caved in because I realized that everybody highlights their Watchtower. So highlighting is a big deal. In fact, even during the meeting, sometimes if elders use the bathroom, when they come back to the bathroom and go back to their seats, they will actually look down the aisles to see who has their Watchtower highlighted. They really do that. Maybe not all elders do that, but many of them do. So if you don't have your answers highlighted, it's a big thing. People see it and people notice it. But now I understand why. You see, the reason that the people running Watchtower make them feel that they have to highlight every paragraph is because that's part of the repetition brainwashing, right? That's number two. So they already have to read it, then they got to go back and highlight it. So that's just putting that repetitive point in their head a second time. The highlighting is important for that. Now, then the third round of this repetition is that after they read it, which is step one, then they got to go back and highlight the main point. So that's the second time. Now they're expected to make a comment and put it in their own words. Now, granted, they don't do that for every single or each Jehovah's Witness is not going to have an answer prepared for every question, but this is just a basic example, just a general idea. So I made like a fake comment just so that you can kind of see how the meeting goes, especially for those who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses. So the question asked at the bottom, and this is the question that they're going to ask. If you look at the bottom, it says number one, and the question says, what does singing enable us to do? So as you can see, step number two, that answer is already highlighted, but then you're supposed to put it in your own words. So let's say that this is me and I'm making a comment, then I would have to read it a third time because now I got to formulate a comment. So that's that third repetitive brainwashing. And so my comment is going to say, when I sing praises to Jehovah, it reminds me how many good things he's done for me. And these are the type of cheesy comments that everybody makes. But as you can see, that comment, it's the same thing the paragraph is saying. I just put it in my own words, but it's basically the same thing. So now we're on the third repetitive time that this point, which the point they're trying to get across is that if we love Jehovah, we'll want to sing praise, and it's an important part of our worship, right? That's the point they're trying to make. So now after we've done that, we've read it at home, we've then went back and highlighted the answers, then we put the answer in our own words, which is saying the same thing. Now step four is that when we go to the meeting on Sunday, they then read the whole Watchtower like we're 5 years old. Now, the reason I say that is because we were already told that you have to study the whole entire book, highlight all the answers, make your own comments. So why not just have a review? When you go to the meeting on Sunday, they act like you never even read it. So they'll have somebody, as you can see in this picture, that will basically, well, so the guy standing up is the guy conducting the Watchtower, asking the questions. The guy sitting down is the guy that's the reader. So they have someone read it to you like you're 5 years old, literally, and they read the whole thing. So this is the fourth time now this information is being in your head again, because now they're going to read it to you as if you never even read it. So why do they tell you to study at home anyway if they're going to read the whole entire thing? Brainwashing, repetitiveness. So now after step four, that now they read it to you again. The next thing that they say is that the first person that raises their hand to comment, they always ask, and it's kind of an unspoken rule, but I actually think they actually put it in print at one point, that the first person that raises their hand to answer this question is supposed to do it right out of the paragraph, basically. They specifically say that. So as you can see, point number 5, let's say this is somebody's answer, which is the first person commenting on his paragraph. So the answer that I made up was, what better thoughts could we feel than those that express praise and love for our Heavenly Father? No wonder singing is a prominent aspect of our worship, which is exactly what the paragraph says. The paragraph says, what better thoughts could we feel than those that express praise and love for our Heavenly Father, Jehovah? It is no wonder that singing is a prominent aspect of our worship. So they ask that the person that raises their hand first gives the direct answer in the paragraph. Well, why do they do that? That's part of the brainwashing, right? Everyone already knows that because everybody has that highlighted. Everybody was already told, go home, read the whole article, highlight the answer, and put it in your own words. So why you gotta go to the Kingdom Hall and they read it again, and then they have somebody comment right out of the paragraph, which everybody already knows because that's what they were told to highlight. But that's the fifth time now that point is being repeated to you. So now after that happens and the first person raises their hand, they comment directly out of the paragraph, then they open it up for everybody to say the same thing, but put it in their own words. So here's a comment that somebody would make on a paragraph like this. So as you can see, number 6, and this is going to be just them putting it in their own words. So say this person comments and says, because singing praises to Jehovah, because singing praises to Jehovah is a prominent aspect of our worship, we should sing with enthusiasm. So now let's say another person comments, and this would be number 7. I love Jehovah so much, I can't help it to want to sing, right? These are the type of answers you get. And say they call on somebody else. And perhaps this would be number 8. Back in the days of the Israelites, they sang praises to Jehovah, so should we, right? So you always have someone that will then try to squeeze the Bible in there, the Israelites or Jesus or something like that, to try to sound intelligent. Then you always have, they'll always call on a child, right? So then a child would make a comment like this. I like to sing praises to Jehovah to make his heart rejoice, right? So that would be like the kid comment. They always want to try to call on one or two children. And then say another person comments and they say, when people go to sporting events, they sing the national anthem out of respect. How much more so should we sing praises to Jehovah out of respect? So you get those self-righteous comments too. And this could go all the way up to 15 or even 20. It all depends on the person doing the Watchtower. Sometimes they will take a lot of comments. Sometimes they'll move kind of quickly, depending on the paragraph sometimes. But every time that somebody comments and puts it in their own words, what they're doing is they're now brainwashing each other. Because even though they're putting it in their own words, they're all saying the same thing, which is what is highlighted. It's all the same thing. In fact, if you make a comment that's not the same thing, sometimes it will get counseled after the meeting, right? Or sometimes the Watchtower conductor won't call on you anymore because they'll say, oh, you didn't follow direction. You didn't stay in the paragraph. So you'll get in trouble for that. But as you can see, all of these comments, they're all saying the exact same thing. And they don't realize that when they put it in their own words, they're just repetitively repeating the same thing. Just like Brother Loesch did with the word truth 120 times in 17 minutes, they're doing the same thing, but it's just far more covert. Like it's not the exact same word, but they're saying the exact same thing. So let's just say that this is what happens in paragraph 1, right? 10 people comment. I'm sorry, not 10 people comment, but 10 times this is being repeated to you. From you were told to study the Watchtower at home, then you're told to highlight the answer, then you're told to take the answer and put it in your own words. Then when you go to the Kingdom Hall on Sunday, they then read it to you like you're 5 years old, like you never read it in the first place. Then they ask that the first person comments repeats basically what's in the paragraph, which is what everybody has highlighted. And then say you get additionally 5 more comments on top of that, all saying the same thing. So what does that actually amount to just in one paragraph? Well, let's say you have it repeated to you 10 times, the same message, and the Watchtower has an average of, say, 20 paragraphs, give or take. Sometimes it's like less, sometimes it's more. But if you have the same thing repeated to you 10 times and 20 paragraphs, that's 200 times that message, whatever it is that week that they want to brainwash you with, is being repetitively in your head 200 times per Watchtower study. Now, again, this is just like an estimate. I know it's not specific and it's going to be off every week. Every week's going to be different, but this is just an idea of how much brainwashing is in one particular Watchtower article. And if 200 seems like an exaggeration, we'll just think Brother Loesch in 17 minutes repeated the same thing 120 times in only 17 minutes. So Watchtower study is about an hour and 15 minutes. So that number is pretty much right on point. So after the Watchtower study, or I won't say after, at the very end of the Watchtower study, so on the right, this is the last page of that study lesson. And if you can see what I have highlighted, that is basically paragraph 19. So this Watchtower article only had 19 paragraphs. But notice what's highlighted, because that would be the answer for paragraph 19, which is the last paragraph. It says, remember that singing is an important feature of our worship. It is a powerful way to show our love and respect and appreciation for Jehovah. Then I highlight at the bottom, it says, obey the clear direction. So it's basically the same thing going back to paragraph 1, right? The idea that they're trying to brainwash Jehovah's Witnesses in this particular article is that singing is so important, and if you love God, you will sing, and basically it's a direction, obey the direction. Because you can see what's highlighted, it says obey the direction. And I also want to show how they also manipulate the scriptures all the time. So when it says obey the clear direction, it then goes on to say from the inspired psalmists. And then it quotes Psalms 96:1, where the psalmist said, sing to Jehovah, right? So it's saying obey the clear direction. So they're saying this is something you need to obey. It's basically a rule they're saying, like follow direction. And then they quote Psalms to make the congregation think, well, this is scriptural, right? Our teachings are from the Bible, right? We got to obey clear direction because it's from the Bible. They think that just because they quoted Psalms 96:1. But let's take a look at Psalms 96:1 to see how they manipulate things. Now, I know that their Bible can't be trusted, but I'm going to use their Bible because it just shows how the brainwashing works, even in their own Bible. So this is Psalms 96:1, where, according to the Watchtower, the psalmist gave direction that we must obey to sing. But if you notice Psalms 96:1, it says, sing to Jehovah a new song, sing to Jehovah all the earth. But if you look at the other verses that follow it, he's just singing a song, right? The book of Psalms is made up of songs. When he's saying sing to Jehovah a new song, it's not a command, it's a song. This is just a quote of a song. It's a chorus. It's like if Beyonce says, shake your booty, that's not a command. She's just saying, shake your booty, right? It's a song. It's the same thing here. He's just saying, sing to Jehovah a new song, sing to Jehovah in all the earth, right? Praise the name of Jehovah. That's not a command. But you see, this is how Jehovah's Witnesses twist things. And the witnesses are manipulated because, again, I mentioned in my last video that when witnesses are in these situations, like when they're studying this magazine and doing these type of activities, they're already in a state of being brainwashed. So when it says at the bottom, obey the clear direction, they think that's direction coming from Jehovah. Oh, we have to do it. We have to sing. Jehovah's telling us we got to sing. And look, they quoted the scripture in Psalms. The psalmist is just a person that was writing a song. All it is song lyrics. That is not direction that you have to sing these songs written by Jehovah's Witnesses. And just to clarify this for those who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses, that what this article is saying is that they have to sing these songs written by them. In fact, Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to listen to Christian music. They're not. Like, they say Christian music is Babylon the Great. That's what they say, that it's false religion. Even though Christian music is just a category of music, they can't listen to it. Literally, they can't, because they're told, oh, it's a Christian music, but if it's not a Jehovah's Witness, that means it's pagan. because they're all false religions. So they can't listen to Christian music. What this article is implying is that they must sing these Jehovah's Witness songs. That's what the article is trying to make them think. And they're trying to make them think that this is from the Bible. And they need to obey clear direction. And if they love Jehovah, they'll do it. You see, that's the way the manipulation works. But again, if you look at paragraph 1 and what's highlighted in paragraph 19, all the fluff in between paragraph 1 leading up to paragraph 19, all that is just like what Brother Loesch did with that truth talk, right? A bunch of nonsense just rambling on about just to try to bring them to this hypnotic state where by the time they get to the end of the article where they had the same message repeated to them on average, say 200 times, at the end of the article, basically, the only thing that the Watchtower wants them to remember is if you love Jehovah, you're going to sing these songs and it's direction. You need to obey it. It's an important part of worship. Like you must do it. And if you love Jehovah, you will do it. That's what the whole article is about. Just like that. And that's how the manipulation works. And this is also how you have things like, for example, 607 BCE. Jehovah's Witnesses are the only people on the planet that say that the fall of Jerusalem was 607 BCE. Why is that? Right? Nowhere on planet Earth is there any physical evidence or documents that says anything about 607 BCE. Everything that exists says 587 BCE. Right? There's nothing that supports 607 on the whole planet. So how do witnesses swear that it's 607 BCE? This same 6-step hypnosis. All they got to do is have a Watchtower article where they talk about 607 BCE, tell the congregation, you need to read and study this article at home. Then, step number 2, they got to highlight the answer that says 607 BCE. Then step number 3, they need to put it in their own words. And if they're not going to make a comment, they're still encouraged to take notes. So whether they make a comment or not, they're still supposedly still putting it in their own words, either taking notes or making a comment. And then they go to the meeting and they read them the whole Watchtower again, like they're 5 years old, about 607 BCE. Then they make sure that the first person that raises their hand or that person knows that they got to answer directly out of the paragraph. So the answer to be, it fell in 607 BCE. Then they'll take comments from other people that are all saying the same thing about 607 BCE, but just putting in their own words. And there you have it, 607 BCE, not based on the Bible, not based on any facts, just based on Watchtower propaganda to make the 607 BCE date so it fits their false 1914 and 1918 and all these other dates that they have going on. And there you have it, 607 BCE. This is how everything is done. Everything from them saying you couldn't wear beards and the reporting of service time, like all the things that they're now changing that they used to say were commands. This is the process that they use. It's all about the Watchtower. And then they throw in scriptures, like when they threw in that scripture that when it said obey the command from the psalmist, and then you look up the scripture and it's just song lyrics. They then will cherry pick these scriptures and throw them in there. But because these people are already brainwashed, they believe it's all scriptural. They believe it's all from the Bible just because the Watchtower said Psalms at the bottom of it. But all teachings that are exclusive to Jehovah's Witnesses, they're all false teachings. And what I mean by exclusive to Jehovah's Witnesses is that they mix truth sometimes in their Watchtower. Like they'll talk about some of the good teachings of Jesus that are clear, like don't lie, don't steal, be honest, love your wife, don't commit adultery. Like, so they'll throw in Bible teachings that are standard. But Jehovah's Witness exclusive doctrine and policies and rules, none of them are scriptural. This is all what they do. They just put it in a Watchtower, go through this 6-step process of hypnosis, and then like magic, It's from Jehovah, right? Just like that. And this is also why they stress going to the meetings. They need you at the meetings for this process to work properly. So, and another quick story about myself, I remember that. So I started studying as an adult. I learned as a child, but I didn't get serious with being a Jehovah's Witness until I was 31 years old. So I remember the first time that I couldn't be at the meeting, I felt scared. I felt like, when you call it a work, say you call it a work because really you're having a bad day and you just want to take a day off. But you feel like, oh, what am I gonna say? Like, you may have to say you're sick, like you may lie a little bit because you got to come up with an excuse. Well, that's how I felt as a grown man. I felt like, what am I gonna say? Like the elders are gonna so like they make you feel early on that like you have to be at every single meeting. And if you're not there, it's like, what happened? There is no, you didn't go because you just didn't feel it going. So like they will send out a search and rescue mission, literally, when you start missing meetings. Now they're not going to look for you if you already have a reputation where they already know you don't really go to the meetings and but if you're somebody who you're just a normal JW, like you usually attend, they will send out a search and rescue mission for you if you miss a couple of meetings. They do. In fact, I remember one time I missed a meeting where before the meeting was even over, somebody texts me, maybe like, oh, I didn't see you at the meeting, or I don't see you at the meeting. Like the meeting wasn't even over. And I'm already getting a text message like, oh, I didn't see you. I know you didn't see me because I'm not there. But all that is done is manipulation because it makes you feel that like there's no excuse. Like you need to be at every meeting. So you feel that like so important. And if you miss like several meetings, like yeah, they'll send out a search and rescue mission. They'll have out in the ministry, like a car group of Jehovah's Witnesses, they will come to your house. Oh, I just want to make sure everything's okay, right? Because to them, if you're not at the meeting, something is wrong. So they stress this meeting thing so much. And one more thing I want to say, because it's kind of important to this information, is that when I started being trained as an elder, now I never became an elder, but when I started going on shepherding calls with the elders, where they go and they supposedly checking on Jehovah's Witnesses that haven't been to the meetings in a while, right? That's what they're about. Mostly. It doesn't always have to be that, but mostly it's those that are like missing meetings. So I'm thinking that I'm going to go on a shepherding call with this elder, and we're going to find out what's wrong with the sister, right? Why is she not really at the meetings and stuff like that? And this elder had an outline for a shepherding call, an outline. One he made up himself, but it was an outline. He's like, okay, we're going to read this paragraph from this Watchtower, and then why don't you cover this? And I'm thinking, I thought we're going there to see what's wrong. If we're going there to see what's wrong, how do you have an outline? You don't even know what the sister's going to say. So then I went on another shepherding call with another elder, and he did the same thing. And I thought, is that just how they do it? Now, I've never served as an elder, so I don't know if like that's how all elders are trained. But basically, they had like an outline. And what the outline basically was all about going to the meetings. All that really mattered on a shepherding call, it didn't matter what the person said. Like the elders would listen, but at the end of the day, all that they were trying to do is get back into the kingdom hall. That's all they really cared about. Really, that like they'll just give you like a little bit of advice. Like the elders care because some of them care because like they're brainwashed too. They don't know the workings of the system from the top. But this is how they're trained. They're trained when they go on a shepherding call. The only thing that really matters is get this person back in the kingdom hall. And this is why. Because once they get back into the kingdom hall, they're going to fall back into this hypnosis. Step one, step two, step three, four, five, six, and then all the other comments. Right. So this is why they stress the meeting so important because the hypnosis, it will not work if you're not there. You have to be there. And granted, you could not be there and still study your watchtower, but if you're not at the meeting, you're only going to get as far as step three. And then if you're not at the meeting too, no one's going to know if you have your answers highlighted. So many times when people skip the meetings, they may not even study the watchtower. But this is the system that they're using. And this is also why Jehovah's Witnesses cannot function without the watchtower. They cannot function. They cannot run one of these meetings without either the watchtower or one of their publications. It's because None of what they're doing is Bible based. None of it is Bible based. What they do is they just cherry pick scriptures that they can manipulate to brainwash them, to control them. And they can't function without all this extra stuff. So I just wanted to really break that down, that this is the step they use with everything. 607 BCE, you can't wear beards. Grown people need a chaperone when dating. Like all the stuff they come up with, this is how they do it. Now, another area that I wanted to cover, and I don't have time to cover everything, so I'm going to be making one more part of the Watchtower hypnosis. But one thing that's connected to the meetings is assemblies and conventions. Now, assemblies and conventions are essentially meetings on steroids.